Hello guys, welcome to a new Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck Tech video. This time we've got some incredible new support following Duelist Nexus and Wild Survivors, which really buff some dinosaur strategies, and I'm excited to show off Xeno Dinomorphia, or as I'm calling it, Xenomorphia. The thesis behind this deck is we are going to be doing dino combos, highly facilitated by the new Xeno cards in Xeno Meteorus and Ground Xeno. And throughout those dino combos, we're going to go through Dinomorphia Therizia, which will allow us to set one of our Dinomorphia traps from our deck, typically Frenzy, but if we already have it, then maybe Domain, or one of our other like weird negate on the Dinomorphia cards, to be able to really lock our opponent down. The end board that this deck makes is quite incredible, very consistently, and because we are still a trap deck at the end of the day, we don't need many cards to start our combo going, and if our opponent does interact with our combo, we just set some Solemns and pass the turn and we win off Solemns. That's the thesis behind the deck. Do a Dino combo plus 3 back row, and if they interact with us, end on 3 back row anyways. Dinomorphia cards, especially Rexterm being a walking skill drain, really shut down a lot of decks, really make it very hard for opponents to compete, especially when they're dealing with a UCT, a Baron, and some Evolzar X's as well on the back end of that. Very powerful deck. And without further ado, we'll just go ahead and get into it. So we're going to kick it off with 3 Souleating Oviraptor. Any Dino deck needs to be playing 3 copies of this card. It just does so much for the deck. When it's normal or special summon, you can add a dinosaur monster from your deck, either to your hand or to your graveyard, and then he can target one of your dinos you control, destroy it, and special summon a dino from your graveyard. If you already have a dino in your graveyard, you can have a dino on the board, destroy it, and then special summon it back to either get as a destroyed effect, like Babycerasaurus, or a special summon effect if you haven't already used it, like another Oviraptor, something like that. Very useful effect. Doesn't have to destroy a dino, but we're playing a bunch of dinos in the deck, so it doesn't matter. Next up, we've got 3 Babycerasaurus, the prime target for a lot of our dino cards. Dinosaur cards like to destroy themselves, and Babycerasaurus is the one that likes to be destroyed. When this card is destroyed by card effect and sent to the graveyard, special summon a level 4 or lower dinosaur monster from your deck. There's a lot of dino cards that are played in typical dino combo decks that we're not playing because we do want to make room for our Dinomorphia cards. Personally, I find this to be a little stronger because you're able to end with some back row as well as your crazy monster combo board, which the monster combo board does not drop in much power. We still end up in a very crazy powerful board, but we also get some spell trap negates, some spell trap interaction as well to be able to beat through things like Lightning Storm, like Dark Ruler No More, like Super Poly, being able to really still do plays through board breakers, which is very strong. I like it a lot, which means that we're really only playing Babycerasaurus, not Tyranno. Following it up, we've got 2 Armed Archosaurs. This is how we get to mostly how we're popping our Babycerasaurus. Great special summon off of Miscellaneosaurus, pitching and then special summoning itself out of the deck. This also gets us to our Double Evolution Pill, which gets us to our Ultimate Conductor Tyranno UCT. When it is normal or special summoned, you can destroy a dinosaur monster in your hand or face up on the field. Add a Reptile, Sea Serpent, or Wing Beast monster with the same original level from your deck to your hand, or add an Evolution Pill. We do have a target for that in Caligo Clawcrow in case we have to pop the Babycerasaurus and we already have the Double Evolution Pill in our hand. I only play 1 Double Evolution Pill and 1 Ultimate Conductor Tyranno because I'm trying to make room for the Dinomorphia cards, and so we play a couple extra backup cards like Caligo Clawcrow, which doesn't really brick with the deck at all because a lot of the Dinomorphia cards are also dark. It gives us extra material for link summoning and stuff like that, which we will be going into once we get to the extra deck. This card is very powerful, very good card of the deck. We mostly want to be special summoning it out of the deck if we can help it, but sometimes we do have to normal summon it. We can also special summon it off of a popped Babycerasaurus if we have a lot of materials going on board, because it is level 4 or lower. Lots of additional optional lines with this deck, which I like a lot. Next up, we've got 2 Xeno Meteorus. This card is searchable off of Ground Xeno, so I do only play 2. I don't mind opening it, which is why I want to play 2, but I don't really want to open it, which is why I don't want to play 3. It is a level 6 dinosaur tuner. The level 6 tuner part comes up a lot. This is how we're able to make Bronne de Fleur. If you guys have been paying attention to dinos post Wild Survivors, this card has been in it for almost exclusively that reason. If a card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon this card from your hand. This is if you destroy your opponent's monsters by battle, so if it's in hand and sitting in hand, it helps you push for game because it's 2,000 attack, has nothing to sneeze at. As well as when you're going through your normal combo to destroy your own cards, you can special summon it out. Or on your opponent's turn, if it's sitting in hand, when your opponent pops your board, you can summon it in defense, try and keep yourself alive for another turn, because this deck, even though it is a combo deck, goes through the line basically every turn. It's very nice. It also says during your main phase, you can destroy 1 dinosaur monster in your hand or field, then special summon a dinosaur normal monster from your hand or deck, and then you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn, except for dragons, dinos, sea serpents, and worms. This largely doesn't affect us, except for our Link 1 line to go into our Secure Gardna to get our types lined up for our Double Evolution Pill, which we'll go over in a little bit if you don't know what I'm talking about, or for Bronne de Fleur. There are hands that we can make where we don't have to use that effect off of like a Lingering Oviraptor and a Meteorus. These just turn into a Bronne de Fleur, especially if you're sniffing out a Nibiru. That's a really good play to go for. It can stop the Nibiru from coming down too early. But most of the time, we are honestly using that effect to destroy our Babycerasaurus and get more cards into rotation, like our Dinomorphia cards off the Babycerasaurus, and get free pluses off the normal monster, go into the brand new Xyz from Duelist Nexus that really, really pumps the power level of this deck. And the normal monster that we're summoning out of here is Frostosaurus. You can do the level 4 if you're prioritizing the Evolzar level 4s, but with the new Evolzar rank 6, I'm really prioritizing those, so we're bringing out the Frostosaurus. Next up, we've got the Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. This guy can special summon himself from your hand by banishing 2 dinosaurs from your graveyard. You can also special summon it from the deck off of Double Evolution Pill. It also says it can attack each of your opponent's monsters once each. If it attacks a face-down defense position monster, you can send it to the graveyard. Does not destroy by card effect, and it's face-down, so this can get around a lot of effects and burn your opponent for 1,000. Incredibly clutch for closing out games. It's also got 3,500 attacks, so it also just does 1 billion damage. And as a quick effect, we can destroy 1 monster we control or in our hand, and send every monster our opponent controls into face-down defense position. They have to have cards that can legally be placed in face-down defense position, so you cannot trigger this effect on your first turn going first, which is a little annoying, prevents us from getting extra pluses, but that's the rules of the game. Also, in the Link decks, this card is not as valuable because Links cannot go face-down, which is one of the main reasons why this dinosaur deck has fallen off, but with the new tools from Wild Survivors and Duelist Nexus, as well as combined with the Dinomorphia cards, I don't care about Link monsters anymore. This deck is very, very efficient at breaking through boards, even full of Link deck cards. Next up, we've got our 1-of Caligo Clawcrow as our additional optional add with Archosaur if we already have the Double Evolution Pill in hand, but we still need to get the pop off. Say we have a Babycerasaurus in hand, Archosaur, and a Double Evolution Pill in hand. We can use Archosaur, pop the baby, add the Clawcrow, baby summons Oviraptor, Oviraptor adds Miscellaneosaurus, Oviraptor's a dark, summon Caligo Clawcrow, keep going from there. Or we can add our Dinomorphia cards if we don't want to extend too far into something like a Nibiru. Dinomorphia cards are all dark, summon the Clawcrow, go into our Link plays. It's great. So we do really, really like this card because all the Dinomorphia cards are dark, even though a lot of our dinos are not. It's basically Oviraptor, and then the rest are all lights or fires or earths and waters. The Dinomorphia cards being darks really helps us unbrick this card even if you open it. It's still very, very nice. Next up, we got the 1-of Miscellaneosaur. Please do with the OCG and bring this card back to 3, or I think they have it at 2 right now. Whatever. They don't have it at 1. And this card is incredibly, incredibly powerful. It says, during the main phase, quick effects. You can do this on your opponent's turn as well. You send this card from your hand to the graveyard. That main phase, all of your dinosaur cards are unaffected by your opponent's cards. This means that your cards can't be Ash Blossom, they can't be Veiler, they can't be Impermed, you can't be Ghost Ogre. You, the player, can still be hit by Droll and Lockbird because it does not prevent you from being affected, just your dinosaur cards. But this deck actually plays around Droll and Lockbird fairly well with certain hands. The Dinomorphia stuff really, really helps go through plays if you've been hit by Droll and Lockbird. If you've been hit by Droll and Lockbird, you can pop your Babycerasaurus, play your Dinomorphia cards. Your Dinomorphia cards will set cards directly from deck, which means they can't be hit by Ash Blossom, and they're not affected by Droll once you're already in that lock. So this is very, very useful for getting there. Miscellaneosaur can also, during your turn, banish itself and any number of dinos from the graveyard to special summon a dino from the deck with the same level as the number of cards that you've banished. Typically, you're just going to pitch it, banish it, summon Archosaur as a level 1, pop a baby in hand after maybe normaling an Oviraptor to either find your Archosaur or your baby, or if you already have a board set up, you can banish it and the Archosaur that's maybe already in graveyard at some point to summon out the baby, get some more pops with the Oviraptor, since you'll be summoning the level 2. Also, good follow-up for turn 2. You can add, if you do not go through this on your normal combo during turn 1, you can add it. You do end up special summoning an Oviraptor on your opponent's turn during the combo line when you're interacting with them. Add the Miscellaneosaur to hand, pitch the Miscellaneosaur on their turn so your guys are unaffected during the main phase. Then on your next turn, banish it, keep going, do the combo all over again, get a bunch of guys on board, get a bunch of extra deck on board, and kill your opponent into the sun. This card is very, very, very incredibly powerful, making not only acting as starting, but also extension and also protection. It just does everything in one card. It's so crazy. Next up, we're going to get into the Dinomorphia cards. Now, a lot of people are probably very familiar with these dinosaur cards. Dinomorphia, probably not as much. So we're going to go through, read these off specifically. So Therizia is our main card here. She's a level 4 dark, 1500 attack, 0 defense. When this card is normal or special summon, you can set 1 Dinomorphia trap directly from your deck into your spell trap card zone. Then, if your life points are 2000 or less, this card gains 500 attack. That's a permanent attack bonus, but 2000 attack is not great. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish a trap from your graveyard, special summon a level 4 or lower Dinomorphia monster in your graveyard, except for herself. You can only use each of these effects hard once per turn. This is very, very useful to go with our Dinomorphia Diplos. On our opponent's turn, Ultimate Conductor Tyranno does need to destroy a card on our board or in hand. We can use that to destroy Therizia. When she goes to graveyard, her graveyard effect will trigger. We can banish the traps that we've already used, summon back Diplos as an extra body, and then when Diplos is destroyed, he can summon back Therizia to set more traps. Very, very useful way to, if we think our opponent can break our board but not kill us. Diplos in defense to then summon back Therizia on our opponent's turn, set another Dinomorphia trap to then use as extension on our next turn. Very, very powerful effect. Diplos has a very similar effect to Therizia, but we'll go over him as well. 1000 attack, 0 defense, 4-star Dark Dinosaur. When this card is normal or special summoned, you can send a Dinomorphia card from your deck to the graveyard. Then if your life points are 2000 or less, inflict 500 damage to your opponent. If this card is destroyed by battle or sent to the graveyard, you can banish a trap from your graveyard, special summon a Dinomorphia from your graveyard. So this, in certain hands, this is a way that we can get to Therizia, in which case, in hands that Therizia wouldn't already normally get to. Basically, this is here because as part of our normal combo, we send a Diplos and a Therizia to the graveyard, and we end up with a Therizia typically left on board or used as Xyz material, so that we can then start looping our Diplos and our Therizia still in graveyard, as part of our just like recursion board to not die to our opponent if they're still able to somehow break our board. Still very useful. These do apply in graveyard, so if your opponent has done something like a Veiler, you can still get the looping effect. Very nice. Then for hand traps, we are in a Droll and Lockbird format, so we'll join the format. We'll play our 3 Droll and Lockbirds. You saying no? Yeah. Okay. Sorry. No worries. And with that, that finishes up the monster lineup. This Droll of Lockbird can be your hand trap of choice. Currently, we're only playing 3 hand traps in the main. The sideboard is where a bunch more hand traps will come in. As with all sideboards, I would recommend just playing to your local meta. There are certain cards that want to be in sideboards for certain decks. This deck is not typically one of them. You might want to put a couple more like Solemns in your sideboard if you want to, but mostly hand traps and board breakers is what I would be putting in my sideboards. Again, depending on what your local meta is looking like. For our spells, we don't have many. We've got Fossil Dig. Fossil Dig is a normal spell that says add 1 level 6 or lower dino from your deck to your hand. This adds every dinosaur in the deck. It doesn't add Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, but it adds the cards that find Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. So it's also not once per turn. This is the big card that's going to be getting hit by Droll and Lockbird. If you don't open Fossil Dig, you can almost always play under Droll and Lockbird if you sniff it out, or if you think your opponent is on it based on like games 1 or game 2. If you open Fossil Dig, you basically have to be playing under Droll and Lockbird, but it offers so much consistency that I just don't care. You just have to be playing Fossil Dig, in my opinion, if you're playing any dino deck. Even a lot of non-dino decks that play random ass dinos will play Fossil Dig because it's just such a crazy card. Then following up, we've got the semi-new card Ground Xeno. It says add a dinosaur tuner monster or a dinosaur normal monster from your deck to your hand, then destroy 1 card in your hand. This is all part of 1 resolution, which is very nice. You can banish this card from your graveyard to fusion summon 1 dinosaur fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as material. We'll get into this. We do have a specific target for this in mind, but it can be used in a pinch on like turn 2 or turn 3 to go into our Dinomorphia cards to really lock down our opponent if we're on going second or on our turn 3 if we didn't want to use it on our turn 1 board. This card is how we will add our Xeno Meteorus to hand, as it is a dinosaur tuner. So Ground Xeno plus Babycerasaurus is just like unlimitedly full combo. Ground Xeno will add a card, will add Xeno Meteorus to our hand, then destroy a card in hand. Babycerasaurus will get popped, then Meteorus will summon itself. Babycerasaurus will special summon a dino from deck using their on summon effect. Either Oviraptor or Therizia are our normal targets. Then Meteorus can pop them, pull out the normal monster. Then we can use Ground Xeno to go into the fusion or to go into Xyz plays or to go into Synchro plays. This card just does so much for the deck. The Xeno cards really opened up the number of starters for the dinosaur deck, which allow us to play all these traps and all these Dinomorphia cards in the deck to prevent our opponent from breaking our board as hard as they normally would into a dinosaur deck. And around our spells here, we've got Double Evolution Pill. This says banish 1 dinosaur monster and 1 non-dinosaur monster from your graveyard, from your hand or graveyard. Special summon a level 7 or higher dino from your deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. The main way that we're doing this is using our extra deck, which I'll go over when we get to our extra deck. Droll and Lockbird is very nice here as our non-dino target if we're going second. This is another reason why I really like Caligo Clawcrow, because the hands where we're searching this, we already have the Evolution Pill in hand, and so we can go through Clawcrow into our graveyard to link it off, so through some link plays, then use Double Evolution Pill. This is our non-dino in graveyard. Lets us save our extra deck pieces for our opponent's turn if we need to, or just to keep more cards in extra deck for more utility options later. And that does round out the spells. Next up, we've got the traps. We're not playing any normal dino traps, so these are all going to be Dinomorphia and Dinomorphia adjacent cards. We've got Dinomorphia Frenzy, the best trap, which is why we're playing 3 of it. It says during your opponent's main phase, pay half your life points. A lot of the Dinomorphia cards pay half your life points, but that's okay. They get better the less life we're at. So during your opponent's main phase, you can pay half your life points. Fusion summon a Dinomorphia monster from your extra deck using only 1 monster from your extra deck and 1 monster from your main deck. When your opponent activates a card or a card effect while your life points are 2,000, when your opponent activates a card or effect while your life points are 2,000 or less, you can banish this card from your graveyard. You take no effect damage from that effect. This isn't a negate. It's just like a Maybe don't burn me if you're playing Sword Soul. This doesn't come up terribly often. There are some Dinomorphia cards that prevent you from taking battle damage, which are way more relevant. A lot of your Dino monsters have a shit ton of attack, so that does play very well with the Dinomorphia cards, allowing you to kill your opponent instantly, even if you don't have much life points left, without having to go into your, what I would argue, bad Dinomorphia cards that allow you to do that. While still being able to consistently kill your opponent, as well as you just don't take much battle damage in this deck because your guys all have like more than 3,000 attack. So if they are attacking over you, you're not taking much anyways. And so it plays very well with the Dinomorphia's weakness of not having much life. This is how our main card that we're going to be setting off of Therizia to just activate it and summon Rexterm straight from our deck, because he does need to use a Dinomorphia fusion monster, but we just use the material from deck, so it's good to go. Next up, we've got 2 Dinomorphia Domain. This is our backup Frenzy. If we open the Domain or the Frenzy, we can use Therizia set to go to one of our negates, which is a little better. This Domain does force us to go through another monster card, though, in order to get to our Rexterm, which makes us pay more life, which is not always bad, but allows our opponent another piece of interaction if they have a card to negate the effect of the card that we have on board after we've done our Domain. Then it's a lot harder for us to get to Rexterm, so I prefer Frenzy, but Domain is still very good, so we do play 2. It also has the effect while it's engraved, you can banish it to take no effect damage next time you would take effect damage. Next up, we've got Dinomorphia Reversion, Dinomorphia Intact, and Dinomorphia Sonic. These are the 3 cards that we're typically going to be sending off of Diplos if we have him in our hand, in our opening hand. We're going to go through them one at a time. Dinomorphia Sonic says when your opponent activates a spell trap while you control a Dinomorphia monster, pay half your life points to negate the activation, destroy the card. And then you have to destroy a Dinomorphia monster you control, which is typically going to be our Therizia or our Diplos, which are then going to loop each other and get us more value. All 3 of these also have the effect to banish themselves from your graveyard to prevent the next battle damage you would take, which is very useful. Dinomorphia Intact says when a monster effect is activated while you control a Dinomorphia monster, pay half your life points to negate the effect, destroy the monster, and whenever you take battle damage this turn, that damage taken becomes half your life points at that time. So this card makes us almost impossible to die by combat damage, and since we have Frenzy and Domain in our graveyard, we're very hard to kill by effect damage. This also can prevent combat damage in case they do push through a lot of damage. This can help us stay alive there. Dinomorphia Reversion is arguably our worst one, but still quite strong. If you control a Dinomorphia fusion monster, which we almost always will, since we're only setting this off of setting if we already have access to Frenzy and Domain, which make our fusion monsters, you pay half your life points, then banish a counter trap from your graveyard, which could be one of our other Dinomorphia cards or one of our Solemns. And then this effect becomes that counter trap's effect when that card is activated. And then during damage calculation, if you would take battle damage, you can banish this and don't take the damage. This basically gives us Solemn 3 and Strike 2 if we open these cards, which is the remaining cards of the deck, or another monster negate or another spell negate. Very, very useful effects. And rounding out the deck, we've got 2 Solemns and a Strike. The thesis behind the deck is to Dino combo, and then if your opponent interacts with you, set some back row. So we want to have some back row that's always live. Typically, we're going to be looking for our Domain and our Frenzy, or our Judgment and Strike. Reversion can become a second Judgment or a second Strike. Notably, the Reversion copying the effect does not copy the cost to pay life points, so you only have to pay half your life points once when you activate Reversion. You don't have to pay it again when you play Judgment, or worry about how low your life is getting when you play Strike set 1500 effect. I typically do tend to lead with Solemn Strike when my opponent is trying to play through their game, because paying the flat 1500 does get a little bit hard towards the end of the game. You do cut your life points in half a lot, just playing the Dinomorphia cards, so keep that in mind. You do have to keep that in mind when you're trying to stop your opponent from comboing or break their board if you've gone second or third or something like that. And that rounds out the main deck. So getting into the extra deck, we've got Linkuriboh. This guy has an effect, but we don't really use it. He takes a level 1 monster, which is going to be our Archosaur, which is the way that we basically link off our Archosaur into Linkuriboh. And then Secure Gardna says it takes 1 Cyberse Link monsters material. Again, this has an effect. It's kind of relevant. It says that we don't take effect damage the turn that we summon, or battle damage the turn we summon it, but that's not really going to come up. It plays a little bit useful with the Dinomorphia cards because we end up being so low. But the main reason we play this is to get Linkuriboh in the graveyard, which is a non-dino, since most of our main deck is dinosaurs. We do want to get this in graveyard for our double evolution pill so we can make our UCT turn 1 all the time. Next up, we've got Proxy F Magician. We do play a decent amount of fusion, so this card can come up. It says 2 effect monsters to make it, which means we can use an extra material we have on board, plus our Archosaur, get it into graveyard, and then it is a Cyberse Link monster, so that we then turn it into the Secure Gardna to get it in graveyard as our non-dino. It It says during your main phase, you can fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your field as fusion materials. If a fusion monster is fusion summoned in this zone, this card points to you can special summon a monster with 1,000 or less attack from your hand. So if you've got an extra Babycerasaurus that's chilling in hand, or a Caligo Clawcrow that you for some reason couldn't summon out, you can spit them out of your hand once you've successfully did the fusion summon. This card doesn't come up often, but when it does, it's quite useful. So we do play it. I play one Underworld Goddess of the Goddess of the Underworld. This card's in German. This is almost exclusively to beat Tryhard, Scareclaw Tryhard. One of our friends at Locals plays Scareclaws, and this deck can't beat that card because it's unaffected by cards in defense position, and your traps just summon monsters that stun your opponent. So unless you have Solemn, which means you've gone first and you've opened a Solemn, you can't beat it. So if they go first and just play that guy, you can't beat it. But you can put a million guys on board and then link it off. Especially since it's link 3, you only need to put 2 guys on board. Super easy to do with this deck. Just put 2 random fuckers on board that you can link off for this thing. Great card. Also, acts as interaction with the turn it's summoned, and can prevent your opponent from monster reborning cards from their graveyard, which a lot of decks tend to do, so it's not bad there as well. Next up, we got the Dinomorphia Fusions. Dinomorphia Rexterm, the star of the show. He is level 8 Dark Dino with 3,000 attack and 0 defense. You do have to summon him in attack position, but we summon him in the middle of our opponent's turn, so we're not really worried about a Lightning Storm play around. We just wait for the Lightning Storm on our board, then summon him out because he gets summoned off of a trap. So he takes 1 Dinomorphia Fusion monster and 1 Dinomorphia monster. Your opponent cannot activate the effects of monsters they control that have attack greater than or equal to your life points. In order to summon this guy out, you're typically using Domain, which cuts your life points in half down to 4,000, or you're using Frenzy, which cuts your life points down in half, or you're using Domain, which is going to do it twice, which we'll show in a minute, so your life points are 2,000, which means they have to break your board full of 3,000 and 3,000 plus attack guys by not activating effects of monsters that have less than 2,000 attack. Very, very hard for them to do. Also, this says, quick effect, you can pay half your life points. The attack of all monsters your opponent currently controls become equal to your life points until the end of this turn. Then if this card is a German battle card effect, you can special summon a level 6 or lower Dinomorphia monster from your graveyard. So you'll pay half your life points to summon out Rexterm, and then if your opponent wants to try and do anything to you, you pay half your life points down to 2,000 life points, or down to 1,000 if you've gone through Domain, and then your opponent still can't activate any effects that have attack a monster that has an attack equal to or greater than your life points. Plus, now all the guys are 2,000 or 1,000 attack. Your whole board is 3,000 or 3,000 plus. They just pass because they can't activate effects. They can't attack you. They can't deal damage to you, and then you kill them because on your turn you just do this effect. Now I have 500 life points. Now you guys have 500 attack. All my guys have 3,000 attack. You die. Incredibly powerful card, and that is why we're playing 2, because there are some times where you are able to summon 2 in the same turn after they out the first one. It's just a walking skill drain, a one-sided walking skill drain. It's just so crazy. On top of the rest of the board that we end on with this deck, Rexterm just makes such a problem for our opponent. Next up, we've got Kentregina. This is the card that we're summoning off of Domain. It takes 2 Dinomorphia monsters with different names. Domain summons from the extra deck using 2 monsters from our main deck, so this sends our Diplos and our Kentregina, our Diplos and our Therizia to summon Kentregina. This card loses attack equal to your life points, even though it starts at 4,000, but you'll pay half your life points to summon this, so you'll be at 4,000 life points, so it'll be at 0 attack. Then when you use your effect, you'll lose some more life points, and she'll get a little bit bigger. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. During the main phase quick effect, you can pay half your life points and banish 1 Dinomorphia normal trap from your graveyard. The effect of that trap, this effect becomes that trap's effect. So we banish our Domain here, which can also use materials on board. So we activate Domain, we send a Therizia and a Diplos from our deck to the graveyard. With this Domain ends up in graveyard to summon the Kentregina. Then we use Kentregina's effect to pay half our life points again. So now we're at 2,000 life points. Banish the Domain. This effect becomes a Domain's effect. Fusion summon with the Kentregina and another Diplos from deck or another Therizia from deck to summon our Rexterm. That's the way that we're summoning out our Rexterm if we find Domain instead of Frenzy. That's the main reason that we're playing 2 Kentreginas here, to be able to go into our Rexterms if we need to. And then we've got Stealthbergia. This guy has an effect. I'm not going to read it. It's not very relevant. This is the guy that we send to graveyard with Frenzy. This guy, he does some burn damage, but he doesn't have much attack. He doesn't have great defense. He does some burn damage in the late game. If you're trying to close out a game, he's not bad, but he's who we're sending to graveyard as material for Frenzy. We send a Stealthbergia and a Diplos from deck for Frenzy to summon out our Rexterm. Next up, this is the fusion target that we're most likely going into off of Ground Xeno, since it takes a dinosaur monster and a normal monster. It is a 12-star fusion. This card goes insanely crazy in this deck. It's got 3,800 attack, which is insane. It says, if this card is special summoned, you can target a dino monster in your graveyard, add it back to your hand. This is typically going to be adding back our Souleating Oviraptor for follow-up on the next turn. It also says if this card is special summoned in the graveyard, you can destroy 2 cards, one from your hand or field and one from your opponent's field. If this card is destroyed, you can shuffle a normal monster from your graveyard into your deck, then special summon this back from the graveyard. and all these effects are hard once per turn, but you're not going to be activating them all in the same turn. So you're going to fusion summon this guy, you're going to add back your Souleating Oviraptor. Then on your opponent's turn, your ultimate Conductor Tyranno is going to destroy this by card effect, to book your opponent's board face down. Then this effect will trigger. You'll shuffle your normal monster back into your deck, special summon this back out. Its effect will add the Babycerasaurus from your graveyard back to your hand. Then its effect, since it was summoned from the graveyard, you get to destroy one of your opponent's cards, which are now face down, so they don't have their effect because of the ultimate Conductor Tyranno, so they're not going to get anything off of it. And you destroy the baby in your hand, destroy their card. This guy's back now, also still 1300 attack. Then the Babycerasaurus in your hand is going to trigger, summon out another card, maybe an Oviraptor, to then add a Miscellaneosaurus to your hand to protect your opponent, to protect your board from your opponent even more. Also, did I mention it's 3800 attack? This thing will just one-shot your opponent almost. This card is incredibly strong and is almost always the card we're going into with our Ground Xeno fusion if we can. Next up, we got Garura. This is for the super polys that I would recommend in the sideboard, but also we can make it with Proxy F Magician technically. It's two monsters with the same type and attribute, but different names. So if we have enough extension, we can get to both of our Dinomorphia cards, use Proxy F Magician to make this, and then use it to go as a level 6 into our new Evolzar. Also, when it is sent to the graveyard, you get to draw a card, so it can act as extension there. It also is a level 6, so if you want to use it and the level 6 Xeno guy to go into this, if you want to use your normal monster and a different Dino to go into the fusion for this off the Ground Xeno, it allows options there for extra card draw. It's basically a flex card. If you're summoning this and you don't have Super Poly, you've probably already won the game, but when you do summon this, you really win the game. It's not mandatory for the deck, but since Super Poly in the side is very powerful, I do like playing it. Next up, we've got Cheng-Ying. This is the main synchro we're going to be going into off of our Xeno card when we are, our Ground Xeno, our Xeno Meteorus, when we are already locked by its effect. When we summon out the normal monster, this guy is a worm, which means it doesn't follow. It still falls under the restrictions that we're allowed to summon. If we want to use Xeno and Xeno Meteorus and one of our 4-stars to make Cheng-Ying, this card is just hard to out. And since we do banish a lot of our cards from our graveyard throughout our main combo, this effect to shrink our opponent's guys and buff our guys is quite strong and helps us just kill our opponent. We don't have a lot of ways to banish cards from our graveyard or banish cards at all during our opponent's turn. So his effect to banish cards from our opponent really only come up if they try to destroy him, but it just makes it even harder for our opponent to out our board because if they try to Lightning Storm, he's going to stay on board. We're going to rip cards off their board. All that kind of stuff. Very, very useful card. Next up, we got Bronne de Fleur. There are certain hands where if we open the Xeno Meteorus, we don't need to summon it off of Ground Xeno, which means we don't need to use its effect to pop things to keep going. We can make Bronne de Fleur off of the level 6 and one of our 4s if we haven't Xeno locked ourselves off of the Xeno cards. Bronne de Fleur is better than Cheng-Ying on every scenario almost, but most hands can't make Baron. Every hand can make Cheng-Ying, so we play the both of them. Next up, we've got the 12-star Synchro. This is the option if we want to use our Xeno Meteorus and the level 6 normal monster that we summon out. This is one of the new Transcendosaurus cards that come out of Wild Summoners, so we will read it off. It is a level 12 water with 3600 attack and 2700 defense. Again, crazy high attack on all these cards. It takes a tuner and a non-tuner, so it is generic, but this is really the only one we're making it in this Dinosaur deck. This card cannot be destroyed by battle, and dinosaur monsters you control that were special summoned from the graveyard cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. Also, your opponent cannot target them with card effects. If this card is destroyed, you can shuffle a normal monster from your graveyard into the deck and then special summon it. So this is basically just like a really big towers. So if we end on this instead of the rank 6, which is most likely what we're going to be ending on most of the time, but in some games where we know that they can't beat the towers, we can summon this out, an Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. This guy can't be destroyed by battle. Ultimate Conductor Tyranno will destroy it, special summon it back. Now it can't be destroyed by shuffling a normal monster back in. Now we've booked their board, and this can't be destroyed by battle, card effect, or targeted by card effect. Just very hard to out. 3600 in a grind game. This can sometimes just beat your opponent by itself in those kind of grindier trap matchups. It's not bad. I like this card as a flex slot. Plus, we have additional extra deck slots in this deck. It's not very hungry for the extra deck. A lot of the combo comes from the main deck, so this card is still very useful. Next up, we've got Evolzar Lars. This is the new card from Duelist Nexus, and this card is incredible. This card is very, very powerful, but it's even stronger in dinosaur decks. So it is a rank 6. It takes 2 level 6 monsters, which is why any deck that can make level 6 can play it, but it's better in dinosaur decks, as we'll see in a minute. While this card has materials, your opponents cannot target it with monster effects, which is already an incredible effect. Then it says, when your opponent activates a card or effect, you can quick effect, detach 2 materials from this card, or just 1 material if all the materials are reptiles and dinosaurs, which they will be in this deck. Then target 1 face-up card your opponent controls, negate its effects until the end of the turn. This is not a hard once per turn effect. So, since we're making it with 2 dinosaur materials, the Xeno Meteorus and the level 6 normal Frostosaurus, we're going to be able to use this twice per turn. This is a twice per turn omni-negate. This is crazy. And also, because it negates by targeting the card, not negating on chain, the way that stuff like Baron does, you can play around some very important board breakers. As part of our normal combo line, we'll end on Domain or Frenzy. We'll use Frenzy for this example. You'll end on Frenzy, and you'll have Lars, and you'll have Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, and then maybe either a Chenging or a Bronne, depending on what you've done. That's typically the end board for this deck. I'm not joking. You'll see in the combo video in a little bit. So your opponents say they activate Dark Droll no more or Forbidden Droplets, right? They pitch a bunch of monsters. You can't respond with Lars. That's fine, because you're going to respond to the Forbidden Droplets or the Dark Droll no more with your trap, Dinomorphia Frenzy. Then you're going to respond to your trap with Dinomorphia Lars, or sorry, with Evolzar Lars, and you're going to target their card that is trying to negate your whole board, and it's going to get negated. Since this is a targeting negate, you can respond with weird things and then respond to those weird things with Lars' effect to negate. And then if they try to do another board breaker like Lightning Storm or something like that, you just negate the Lightning Storm and you're good to keep moving. This card is incredibly powerful, expected to see in a lot of decks. I think that like Brandon is going to be playing it because you can make it with 2 Bestials. This card is incredibly powerful. Expect to see this popping up in a bunch of deck lists, especially Dinosaur, which plays with it even better because instead of 1 negate, it's 2. And also, it still can't be targeted, even if you do the first negate. It's so crazy. This card is incredible. And to round out our extra deck here, we've got Evolzar Laggia, one of the classic Dino cards. It takes 2 level 4 Dino monsters, which is typically going to be an Oviraptor and a Therizia, but could be a bunch of other options. And when a monster would be normal or special summon or a spell trap is activated, you can quick effect attach 2 materials from this card, negate the activation or the summon, and destroy it. This is our other main protection against cards like Lightning Storm or Dark Hole or Raigeki or Evenly Matched or stuff like that. You're always able to make Laggia because putting level 4s on the board is just part of what your deck does. You're most of the time able to make 6s. You do need to open the Xeno Meteorus or Ground Xeno in order to make him. So he is the main interaction with the main protection for your board into big board breakers. Laggia by himself does not stop things like Dark Droll on a board because he does negate on chain. You can't chain your domain or your frenzy to it. But if they like Dark Droll your whole board, you then just after it resolves, when they try to commit something, you just summon out your Rexterm anyways, and they're still under skill drain, which is why this deck is so crazy. It's really, really hard to break this deck's board once it gets going. And if you try to hand trap it, I'll just set 3 back row and do the same thing anyways, except with a Strike or Solemn in the mix up. This deck is incredibly powerful, and I can't wait to show off all the extra little tips and tricks this deck can do in the combo video. If you like dinosaurs, personally, I legitimately think this is the best way to play dinosaurs right now. Your brick hands still end on like skill drain plus some solemns, and your normal hands are still normal dinosaur combo, and throughout your combo you still go through Therizia instead of some other normal dinosaur stuff to set your Dinomorphia stuff in combination with Lars specifically. It just adds so much more resilience to the deck against board breakers. Lars is an incredible card at breaking boards as well because it can't be targeted. It's just the Dinomorphia stuff is incredible at breaking boards. You just slam a Rexterm and they can't do anything. UCT, Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, is still incredible at breaking boards. This deck is very, very strong going first or going second, and because we're playing so many traps, you can just keep 1 frenzy in and side out all of these cards if you're going second, and this is just your sideboard. This deck is so easy to sideboard for. You don't have to cut any engine. You just cut down to everything except for your 1 target for your Dinomorphia cards to make sure they still work, and you just bring in a million hand traps that your opponents are going to be destroyed by. This deck is very, very, very fun. I like this deck a lot. It's a combination between a combo deck and a control deck, which we don't see a lot in Yu-Gi-Oh! Very powerful deck, especially with the new support coming out of Duelist Nexus and Wild Survivors. Highly recommend you guys pick this deck up if you don't have it already. Dinosaur pieces have been around forever. Dinomorphia is a little harder to get your hands on than a little less common to get your hands on, but incredibly powerful deck. Highly recommend. If you like this deck and want to see what it can do, we got a combo video coming out for you next video, and keep your eyes here on the channel. We got a bunch more Yu-Gi-Oh content, a bunch more trading card content in general coming for you, and we will see you guys in the next video. Peace.